The exhilarating empire had seen countless worlds. They had conquered civilizations, erased cultures, and bent entire species to their will. To them, Earth was nothing more than another insignificant planet, one more stepping stone in their expansion across the galaxy. Their scouts had observed it from afar, gathering intelligence, analyzing data, and predicting human behavior. According to their calculations, Earth's inhabitants were primitive, technologically limited, war-prone, and completely unprepared for an invasion. The Empire had done this 1,000 times before. Earth would be no different. Commander Varish stood on the bridge of the observation vessel Zephyrian, watching holographic projections of Earth. The data reports scrolled across his screen, confirming what he already believed. Humans were predictable. They had wars but never united. They had weapons but nothing that could rival even the weakest cellulary warship. Their governments were divided, their people emotional, and their history filled with internal conflicts. Conquering them would be easy. The fleet remained hidden in deep space, just outside Earth's detection range. The exhilarating had no reason to rush. They had sent reconnaissance probes to scan every major city, every military base, every power structure. The probes moved unseen, their cloaking technology making them undetectable to human sensors. For weeks they watched. They monitored government meetings, studied global networks, and listened in on human communication. It was all routine, until something changed. A deep space probe detected an anomaly. A sudden energy surge, appearing and disappearing in less than a second. It wasn't a weapon discharge or a natural phenomenon. It was something else. Something that shouldn't exist on a planet as underdeveloped as Earth. At first, the exhilarating dismissed it as an error in their system. But then it happened again. And again. Varish leaned forward, his dark eyes narrowing at the readings. "What is this?" he muttered, adjusting the holographic display. The energy spikes were appearing in random locations. Mountain ranges, deep ocean trenches, remote deserts, places where no human structures were visible. It didn't make sense. If Earth had advanced technology, why would they hide it in such places? And why weren't they using it? "Commander, should we deploy a scout team?" one of the officers asked. Varish hesitated. The exhilarating had never needed caution when dealing with primitive worlds. They struck hard and fast, eliminating resistance before it even began. But something about this was unsettling. No conquered species had ever shown signs of hiding technology this efficiently. If humans were truly weak, why did their planet feel like it was watching back? "Send a probe closer," he ordered. "I want a direct scan of the anomaly." The probe descended into Earth's atmosphere, silent and invisible. It approached the location of the last energy surge, scanning for any traces of advanced technology. The exhilarating bridge crew watched the live feed as the probe hovered over an empty patch of land. There was nothing there. No buildings, no structures, just an open field with grass swaying in the wind. Then the screen glitched. A flicker of static, a burst of interference. Then, darkness. The probe was gone. Varish's hands tightened into fists. What just happened? Unknown interference, Commander. The probe's signal was severed. Did it crash? Negative. One moment it was transmitting, and the next, it was just gone. Silence fell over the bridge. Exhilarating technology was the most advanced in the galaxy. There was no force on a primitive planet that could have taken down one of their probes, especially not without a trace. Something wasn't right. Varish exhaled slowly. His fleet had planned for an easy conquest, but this was no longer routine. If Earth had secrets, the exhilarating needed to uncover them before launching an invasion. Because for the first time in centuries, the Empire wasn't sure if they were the hunters or the hunted. You said, Part 2, the first mistake. Earth was not defenseless. The exhilarating Empire had never lost a probe before. Not to a pre-spacefaring species, not without explanation. Commander Varish stood on the bridge of the Zypharian, his dark eyes fixed on the empty space where the probe's signal had once been. No wreckage, no distress beacon, no trace at all. 1 second it was transmitting, the next, it was as if it had never existed. The silence on the bridge was heavy. Even his officers, who had laughed at the thought of humanity resisting, now exchanged uneasy glances. "This cannot be a coincidence," Varish muttered. "Send another probe. This time, observe from higher altitude. If there is anything down there, we will find it." Another probe was dispatched, this time from orbit. It hovered over the same location, scanning for traces of the first probe or any signs of an attack. The exhilarating waited, their screens displaying a live feed of an empty field, completely undisturbed. It was as if nothing had happened. Then it happened again. The screen glitched, a burst of static. The feed cut out. The second probe was gone. A murmur ran through the crew. Varish clenched his jaw. 2 probes, lost without a trace. No energy weapon discharge. No physical impact. Just silence. A war strategist stepped forward. "Commander, I advise against sending another. This is beyond anything we've encountered before." Varish turned sharply. "Are you suggesting we retreat from a primitive world?" His voice was sharp, but there was something else beneath it. A hint of uncertainty. "Not retreat," the strategist said carefully. "But we should reconsider our approach. The humans are weak," Varish interrupted. "Their civilization is divided. Their military is outdated. They have never fought an enemy beyond their own world. We are the exhilarating. We do not fear shadows." But even as he spoke, something gnawed at him. The exhilarating had observed humanity for years. They had studied their history, their wars, their inventions. Every analysis had concluded the same thing. Humans were aggressive, but they lacked the power to fight an interstellar empire. And yet, Earth had just taken 2 of their most advanced probes, without effort, without explanation. And now, the fleet was blind. Varish exhaled slowly. "Fine. If technology cannot uncover this mystery, then we will use something else." He turned to his second-in-command. "Prepare an infiltration team. I want boots on the ground." The officer hesitated. "Commander, with all due respect, sending our own soldiers down when we don't understand what happened to the probes." "This is an order," Varish snapped. "The humans may have found a way to detect and neutralize our drones, but they will not expect us to come ourselves. Let them believe they are still hidden. We will rip their secrets from the shadows." The preparations began at once. A team of elite exhilarating operatives, trained in stealth and planetary infiltration, were selected. They would descend to Earth under full cloaking, observe human activity, and uncover whatever force had taken their probes. As the infiltration team boarded their dropship, the crew watched in silence. For the first time, the exhilarating were not just studying Earth. They were stepping onto its surface. And for the first time, they were walking into the unknown. "You said." The exhilarating dropship cut through Earth's atmosphere like a ghost, its hull cloaked in an advanced stealth field. No human sensors would detect its descent. No satellites would record its arrival. To the world below, it simply did not exist. Commander Varish stood in the command center aboard the Zypharian, watching the live feed from his infiltration team. They had landed near the last known location of the missing probes, an empty field in the middle of nowhere, the perfect place to uncover the truth. The operatives moved in formation, their sleek armor blending with the environment. The air was still, no threats in sight, no resistance, only the soft rustling of wind through the grass. "Begin scanning," ordered the squad leader. Silent pulses of exhilarating energy swept across the area, searching for any sign of interference. But the readings came back normal. No signs of hidden weapons, no energy signatures, no technology advanced enough to take down a exhilarating probe. Just dirt and grass. "It's empty, Commander," the squad leader reported. "There is nothing." The feed cut out. Static. Then, darkness. Varish's blood chilled. Re-establish the connection. Now. The technicians worked frantically, but the link was gone, just like the probes. No warning. No distress signals. The team had been there one moment, and the next vanished. A heavy silence filled the bridge. The exhilarating had conquered hundreds of planets. But this was something new, something unnatural. "Send another team," Varish ordered. His officers hesitated. One finally spoke. "Commander, we don't know what we're dealing with." Varish's fists clenched. The exhilarating were an empire of conquerors. They did not fear the unknown. And yet, for the first time, fear was creeping into his mind. Before he could respond, a new alarm blared. "Commander, we have an incoming transmission." Varish spun toward the screen. "From where?" The officer swallowed hard. "Earth, sir." A cold wave passed over the bridge. Humanity did not have the technology to detect the Zypharian, let alone communicate with it. This was impossible. "Put it through," Varish said, his voice tight. The screen flickered. A dark figure appeared, silhouetted against a dimly lit room. A human. "You shouldn't have come here." The voice was calm, controlled. But there was something in the tone that sent a chill through the exhilarating crew. Varish narrowed his eyes. "Who are you?" The human leaned forward, just enough for the dim light to reveal the sharp glint of their eyes. "You've made a mistake." The transmission cut off. For the first time, the exhilarating fleet, an empire that had crushed civilizations, stood in uneasy silence. Something on Earth had just spoken to them directly, and it wasn't afraid. "You said." Silence gripped the Zypharian's bridge. Every officer, every technician, every soldier aboard that exhilarating warships stared at the darkened screen where the human had just spoken. The words still echoed in their minds. "You've made a mistake." Commander Varish's mandibles tightened. Fear gnawed at his thoughts, but he crushed it beneath his duty. The exhilarating empire did not bow to unknown threats. They did not surrender to shadows. "Locate the source of that transmission," he ordered. His crew hesitated, then scrambled to obey. Within moments, the answer came, impossible, yet undeniable. "Commander," an officer said, voice tight with disbelief. "The transmission. It didn't come from a human city. It didn't even come from the planet's surface." The officer swallowed hard. "It came from orbit. From nowhere." Varish's breath slowed. "Impossible," he murmured. "Our sensors would have detected a ship." "They detect nothing, sir." The officer's hands trembled over the controls. "But something is there." The words sent a chill through the bridge. The exhilarating were masters of war. They had wiped out entire species, shattered entire fleets. And yet here, over this primitive world, they were blind. Their probes had vanished. Their elite soldiers had disappeared, and now, an unseen force was speaking to them from the void. Varish straightened, shoving aside the creeping unease. "Prepare the fleet," he commanded. "This is a psychological trick. The humans are weaker than us. They are trying to frighten us into retreat." No one responded. Then, an alert. "Commander." A frantic officer turned, eyes wide. "Our outer perimeter ships. They're gone." Varish froze. "What do you mean, gone?" "Their signals disappeared. No distress calls, no energy readings, just like the probes, just like the infiltration team." The bridge fell into stunned silence. One by one, the exhilarating warships at the edge of the fleet were vanishing. Not in battle, not in explosions, just erased, as if something was consuming them from the shadows of space. Then the lights flickered, the screens glitched, and a voice returned. "You were warned." A deep, humming vibration shook the Zypharian, and suddenly, they weren't the hunters anymore. They were the prey. Panic rippled through the Zypharian's bridge. Officers scrambled to regain control of their systems, their fingers darting over controls that refused to respond. The fleet's outer ships had vanished, without a trace, without a sound. And now, the heart of the Exhilarating Armada was next. Commander Varish gritted his teeth. Activate full defensive systems. Sir, we can't. An officer cried. Our systems air. The lights flickered again. The ship trembled, as if something enormous had just brushed against it. Then, for the first time, a sensor reading appeared on their displays. Something massive moving through the void, just beyond their sight. Varish's blood ran cold. What is that? The officers stared, their mandibles clicking in fear. The shape was there, but not. The distortion in space itself. It left no energy readings, no heat signatures. It moved without propulsion. Then, the darkness spoke. Leave. A single word. Not a threat. A command. Varish's hands curled into fists. We do not take orders from. A deafening screech cut through the bridge. Not sound. Not interference. Something deeper. A vibration in reality itself. The Zypharian shuddered violently, warning alarms blaring as the ship's structure groaned under invisible pressure. On the screens, the distortion twisted, shifted, then lunged. The Exhilarating barely had time to react. The nearest warship, a vessel 5 times the size of a human city, vanished. 1 second it was there, the next it collapsed into itself, crushed by an unseen force. A ripple spread through the fleet. Another ship crumbled. Then another. We have to retreat, an officer screamed. Varish's mind raced. This wasn't just an ambush. It wasn't human trickery. This was something else. Something that Exhilarating had never encountered before. A force that did not obey the laws of physics. A force that was wiping them from existence. Varish's pride fought against the rising horror, but he knew. They had underestimated Earth. They had assumed humanity was weak. They had assumed their technology would give them control. But Earth was not defenseless. And now, the Exhilarating were the ones being hunted. All ships. Varish shouted, fall back. Get us out of here now. Engines roared to life. The Exhilarating fleet turned, fleeing the planet that had swallowed their forces whole. But as the Zypharian prepared to jump, the transmission returned. Run, the voice said, and tell the galaxy. Earth is not what you think it is. The screen cut to black. Varish did not argue. He ordered the retreat, and for the first time in Exhilarating history, their empire fled in terror. You said. The Exhilarating fleet tore through space at impossible speeds, fleeing Earth's orbit with a desperation never before seen in their empire. What should have been an effortless conquest had turned into a nightmare, a horror they couldn't explain, couldn't fight, couldn't even see. Aboard the Zypharian, Commander Varish stood rigid, his claws digging into the armrests of his command throne. The bridge was silent. No one spoke. No one dared to. The whispers of terror were etched into every officer's face. The Exhilarating were warlords, conquerors of countless worlds. They did not fear. They did not run. And yet they had. Report, Varish ordered, voice tight. An officer hesitated before speaking. Sir, we lost 20 ships. There were no survivors, no wreckage, just nothing left. Varish's mandibles twitched. Nothing left. Entire warships had been erased, not destroyed, removed from existence. It defied everything they knew about warfare. Play back the recordings, he commanded. The main screen flickered, showing the fleet's last moments above Earth. The distortion, the thing that had moved through the void, was there. Not a ship, not a weapon. Something deeper, something wrong. It hadn't fired weapons. It hadn't engaged in battle. It had simply touched their ships, and they had ceased to exist. Varish's claws tightened. The Exhilarating Empire's greatest strength was knowledge. They always knew what they were fighting. what they were conquering. But this was beyond them. A transmission request blinked on the console. It was from High Command. The Emperor himself demanded answers. Varish took a slow breath before accepting. The screen shifted, revealing the towering form of the exhilarating Emperor, his eyes burning with expectation. "Commander Varish," the Emperor said, his voice like sharpened steel, "you led the fleet to subjugate Earth. And yet, you return in disgrace." Varish bowed his head. "Your Excellency, Earth is not what we believed it to be. There is something there, something hidden. It defies logic, defies reality itself." The Emperor's gaze narrowed. "You were bested by primitives." "No," Varish said, his voice cold. "We were bested by something not human, something they control." A murmur ran through the Emperor's advisors. The exhilarating did not believe in myths. They believed in power, in technology, in force. But what had happened above Earth could not be explained by science. The Emperor leaned forward. "What did you see, Commander?" Varish hesitated. The words felt heavy on his tongue. "I saw a warning." The bridge was silent. The Emperor's mandibles twitched in displeasure. "Do you suggest we abandon Earth?" Varish lifted his head, eyes dark with certainty. "I suggest we never return." The Emperor's glare burned into him. "We are the exhilarating. We do not flee from the unknown. We conquer it." Varish's next words came softly, yet they carried the weight of truth. "Then, Your Excellency, prepare to be conquered." The transmission ended. The bridge remained deathly quiet as the Zephyrian continued its journey away from Earth. And across the galaxy, as whispers of what had happened spread, empires that once saw Earth as weak began to reconsider. Because for the first time in history, the predators of the stars had learned what it meant to be prey.